Hey guys, the following video is brought to you by American Collectors Insurance. Stick around towards the end for some more information. Hey guys, Joey here with American Collectors Insurance, and today on Riding Shotgun we have a special guest, and that is Mikey Gee. So for those of you that don't know Mikey Gee, Mike, why don't you just say hello and tell people a little bit about yourself?
I'd be glad to. Thank you very much for having me on the show. My name is Mikey. I am a writer and videographer for Electrek.co, which is covering in great detail the electric vehicle revolution, which includes a lot of Tesla, as well as every other automaker out there that's doing electric, which is almost everybody at this point, as well as personal mobility and even flying cars, which we're on the tip of kind of understanding how that's going to work. I've worked in electric cars and electric bicycles for over 10 years, for pretty much the entirety of my career. And it's great to flex some of that on the show. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, I think we should jump right into it. I will tell you, I go to a lot of car shows with American Collectors, and I get to talk to a lot of our customers one-on-one, which is really cool. They got some sweet cars, and we'll talk about what they love about their car and stuff. But it's crazy. Like one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the show and talk to you was because I've had a lot of people ask me, like, hey, this electric car thing, do you think it's taking over? Like, do you think almost like our way of life, our hobby, collecting cars and those kind of things, like, is that gonna die out? Are we all just dinosaurs, living on fossil fuels, so to speak? And I'm wondering, from your side of the coin, what does our world look like to you? And do you think it's going anywhere?
Oh, well, I hate to get stuck on wording or anything, but I really see it as the same world. The way the automatic transmission took over the stick shift. I mean, the stick shift is still around and will be on certain markets of vehicles for some time to come. I believe that there's certainly a place for gas vehicles in the foreseeable future. Where electric cars shine, I think that would be great if they did take over, just because I like cars so much. That's why I got into electric cars, is because I wanted to have some cheap little runabout to get around town so that I could really enjoy my, at the time, not so classic car. Now it's more of a classic, an old Monte Carlo. But that's why I got into it, because I like cars in the first place. And the electric option just opened up so many new avenues for efficiency, for the ease of operation, for how they're incredibly simple when you look under the hood or look under the floorboards in many cases. So I don't see electric cars as like as a conqueror that's going to destroy the gas market. Sometimes it's positioned that way in the news, and on the site that I contribute to, Electrek.co, we do have some zealous folks on there who are really excited for the electric revolution, and I can see why. We do call it a revolution, after all, the way that I positioned it. But yeah, I do see it as being kind of a changeover, probably a slower one than the headlines would have you think. There are certain aspects of electric cars that have not yet been what's the word, optimized, we'll say. Electric cars are perfect for a suburbanite running to the grocery store, a soccer mom picking up kids and stuff. That's perfect. If you're going to be towing, especially long distances, that's a challenge. If you have a lot of electric cars trying to charge in an older apartment building, that's also really hard. Heavy machinery, some of it can go electric, some of it can't. As I mentioned earlier, with flying vehicles, airplanes and helicopters, that one's not there yet, but they're coming out with some innovations that could make it possible, maybe not practical. So this is going to take some time. It's not going to be a total destruction. And for a lot of the folks who are in the age and income range to be collecting vehicles, I think that will still be viable until they pass it on to their children. And the folks who are receiving that maybe into their twilight years as well. So that's my opinion on the changeover of electric vehicles.
Okay, so you think that it sounds like electric vehicles are not the cure all that sometimes we hear in the news. That there's actually quite a bit of limitations, and they serve they like you said, they serve kind of a specific purpose really, really well. But then there's other things that they're not so suited for. Does that sound right?
Yes, with some clarification on scale, because the things that electric cars do very well is the vast majority of transportation.
Hmm.
It's enormous. Most people don't take a trip longer than 30 miles a day. Electric cars have been able to do that for 50 years or more.
Hmm.
And with the recent innovations that we've had, there's aside from cost, and I realize that is a restriction, aside from cost and where you live, most people in the suburban areas of the United States could totally do electric. It'd be great. They would save a ton of money. They would ride a little bit smoother. They would pay a whole lot less in maintenance and everything. So, yes, it's true that electric does not solve all of the issues of transportation for both humans and cargo, but they're really, really close. It's really close. You know, uh, I like to use the analogy of an oven and a microwave, that an oven can do everything that a microwave can. You could boil water in the oven if you really wanted to. You can make a Thanksgiving dinner. You could do everything. But every single home has a microwave, even if the oven can do it all. That's because the microwave does something extraordinarily efficiently, in fact. And I don't see any reason why, again, cost where you live. There are some important caveats. In most cases, people could totally do an electric car and then use their gas car on the weekends or just for fun. That's what I do, and it's great. There's no reason why they can't coexist for now.
That's cool. So you said you had a Monte Carlo for a while, and those are known for their incredible style, their smoothness, their power. They are not known for their efficiency.
Oh,
So I guess what you're saying is like like your electric vehicle is like like the workhorse, what you're running your errands with and stuff. When you really want to have fun on the weekend, you go out and take your collector car out for a spin, take it to the beach or to a car show or wherever you might be, something like that.
yeah, exactly. It's the street shoes. You
Mhm.
don't wear Sunday shoes every day. You wear something to get around, and that's okay. People know this. I mean, professional race car drivers, they run around town in a beat up Nissan Maxima, I've seen in one case.
Yeah,
And it's
he doesn't drive a Formula One car
no,
to pick up his groceries.
exactly. You corner some famous race car driver, and say, "Hey, do you drive that to go pick up your kids?" I'm like, no, the seats are taken out. So yeah, I think it's great. We have this idea that there's a lot of things that come into play, but um, two particular facets of modern American life is one of them is that we live in a time of great peace and great abundance. People having more than one vehicle in their home is very, very common, especially when you get outside of the dense urban areas where people are more inclined for electric bicycles or something. So a lot of people with homes have more than one vehicle. It's extraordinarily common. The other thing uh, is that we're very specialized in the things that we want to accomplish. Or I'm sorry, no, that's the point I wanted to get to. So the other thing is that a lot of people have more than one car, and the other thing is we're told that we need one car that can do everything, which I don't believe is entirely accurate. We're being sold on big SUVs that we're told can do everything. They can go off road, they can carry the kids, they can drive down the street, they can drive up on the curb. They can go anywhere. They can go 1,000 miles, although the efficiency is something to be desired. That's more like the oven. And I think that we should, and of course, this takes quite a bit. This is no small request for people to start seeing their transportation needs as something more specific, because we do that for all sorts of stuff that we have for clothing or for items that we carry in our pocket. We don't. So yeah, that's my theory, and it goes a lot further than that into more daily life and stuff. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
I think that there's definitely a car culture around America that would be an obstacle for that kind of adoption.
So you think the car culture isn't going anywhere?
No, absolutely not. No, the car culture is an important part of American life. It really becomes apparent when you travel abroad. I went to China, and their car culture is it's very very different from what we do.
I can
Uh,
imagine.
yeah, it was in America. We've had cars for a very long time. They've become a way of life for us that I think should be celebrated. It should be um, it should be something that lasts for many years to come, and I'm totally okay with that. We have a very large country with very large open roads. We have a lot of space. We have inordinate freedom to travel, and yeah, that's a road I'd love to keep keep our country going for generations to come.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think what I usually so what I tell people, because like I said, I have our customers will come and ask my thoughts on the whole electric thing, like revolution, as you said. What I usually tell people is I personally think it's like the quartz crisis of the 70s, where you had these Swiss watchmakers and American watchmakers, German, all these different watchmakers were making, these mechanical watches, that you had to wind up manually, and they would have like, 200 little parts and pieces in there. And then the quartz watch came along, and it was far more accurate, way less, what do you call it? Way less pieces and parts, kind of like an electric car, and the cost was crazy. The cost went crazy down, and everyone just thought, well, this is it. All the watchmaking, these hundreds of years of tradition, is just going to be wiped away, and it's going to be gone. Very similar to the auto world for me, because the auto world, we have a good 150 years of tradition or so, and it was kind of the same with watchmaking at that time. And they they did lose some companies along the way. It was kind of this thing where they had to adapt and find themselves. But a lot of the companies, they ended up, digging their heels in and say, you know what, let's capitalize on what we are. We are a Swiss watchmaker. We have history. We have heritage. We have, craftsmanship. We really take pride in. I mean, a quartz watch, you just throw a battery. That's not a lot of craftsmanship, for the movement inside. And so they said, let's capitalize on that. And then the watch world stuck around. I mean, today there's still Rolex stores, and people, the rappers rap about them, and people are buying them and stuff. And so it's like it didn't go anywhere. Like, if you're a real enthusiast, uh there's plenty of watch options. If you're a real enthusiast, I think there's going to be plenty of car options.
Mm.
Like you, I don't see it going anywhere for the current generation or even the next generation. It will it dwindle in popularity? It could, yeah. But I still think it'll be around, and we got some fun years ahead. So, and
Yeah.
actually, I wanted to, speaking of fun years ahead, I wanted to get your take on something. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I so they announced the new Dodge Charger. Let me see if I can pull this up here. So this thing is interesting. The new Dodge Charger is a two-door now instead of a four-door. A lot of people kind of get the Charger and the Challenger confused because they have very similar names, and they're both very powerful Dodge American muscle cars. But the Challenger was the two-door and the Charger was the four-door. But now the Charger is down to a two-door, and we got the design here. I won't even get into powertrain and that kind of stuff. What do you think of the design?
Uh, the design's pretty cool. I really like the front spoiler that they have in there. That's a new thing that some other automakers are exploring with electric vehicles.
Mhm.
With electric vehicles, efficiency is king because you
Like
have an enormous,
aerodynamics.
yeah, aerodynamics, yeah, especially is a big part of that, huge part of that. And so they're putting spoilers on the front to try and improve the aerodynamics. They're putting them on the back, of course, for styling as well.
Mhm.
Volvo is doing, or not Volvo, is it I always confuse Volvo and then their electric
Oh,
company called
Polestar.
Polestar. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Volvo slash Polestar, they've got a front spoiler. Also, the Vietnamese company VinFast has one on their vehicle, but I don't know if that's going to make it to market. But it's a different story. Yeah, for this is the Charger, not the Challenger, right? So for
Correct.
the
Yeah.
yeah, for the Charger, I think it looks pretty slick. I like it a lot. I'm glad to see that more vehicle segments are opening up because last year, 2022, it was pretty much electric crossover or a Tesla Model 3, and that was it. you know,
Mhm.
I hope you like a crossover because everyone's got an electric crossover, and that's all. So I'm really happy to see more things open up like muscle cars because muscle cars are a perfect thing to go electric. They're just perfect. They're great.
Well, hey, don't give it away for the people that don't know. So, well, okay. So I think the design's really cool. I really like the wheels. It kind of takes me back to the 80s, sort of, when they started doing wheels with like I think it was the what was that company, Renault, and then the Corvette, the C4 had kind of similar looking wheels. So it looks like they're trying to go a little retro. I'm sure some people would be upset because it was nice to have a practical, four-door kind of muscle car that you could drive. But I actually like that they went back to two-door because if you look at the old Chargers, like the famous scene in Bullet where he's driving the Mustang in San Francisco, he's being chased by a Charger and it's a two-door, you know. And so I think it's kind of cool they brought the two-door Charger back. So yeah, on this guy, they put that you're going to have two engine options. It's either going to be a straight six twin turbo, or it's going to be an electric option. And let's see, the electric option supposedly, I don't know if it's like some sort of speaker system. Like I've seen this before, and maybe you can explain it better. But they have these speakers in the car that when you hit the throttle, when you hit the gas, or I guess the electricity, when you step on the pedal, it makes a noise in the speaker like there's exhaust or revving because people like that and miss that. On this car, they've actually amplified it so people around you can hear a fake growling, popping, crackling, popping exhaust that doesn't exist. And I think it's kind of neat, but I also think it's kind of hokey. I don't know. What are your thoughts on something like that from your side of the coin?
Yeah, from my end of it, uh to I don't like it. I'll put it that way. The artificial engine noise has actually started the other way around, in which at first they were made to warn people around the vehicle for,
Yeah.
especially for those who are visually impaired, who can hear cars coming normally. But then when electric cars came out, the only thing that you hear is the rubber against the road. That does pose a threat for people who are navigating audibly around a city. Um, so I think the first vehicle for that made it big was the Nissan Leaf had an artificial engine noise. Tesla installed theirs later on. Initially, they didn't have that, and all the electric cars, 100 years prior, never had such a thing. Um, I think it is regulation now. I think it's mandatory. At one time, it wasn't. But then that, but now with vehicles like the Charger, they're bringing that into the cabin, where they're putting in an artificial noise to simulate an engine and simulate the inner workings of the
Like a
of the
combustion engine.
yeah of the gasoline going into the cylinders and everything, and even the transmission, which isn't there in most electric cars.
Yeah.
Mechanically, they could have a transmission, but they just don't. um
Interesting.
yeah, but so it's
Why
funny
why
that it's
why why don't they? Does that just go back to the whole efficiency thing? Because
it
I'm
does.
sure it would feel more natural. Because people are, as people, we get set in our ways. We don't like a lot of change. So the more smooth you can make the process or transition, I feel like the better it would be. So, but they just decided not to go with mechanical gears again, just for efficiency.
Correct. Yes. So well, it's efficiency, but also cost savings because you could use a really tiny motor. You could use a motor like for like a golf cart. They have like just a single motor about yay big. It's like a 6 horsepower motor. It's like the size of like a cantaloupe or something. That's enough to propel two people about 30 miles an hour for maybe 30 miles or so. So on the very small end, golf cart size, you could totally do a cantaloupe. For a vehicle like a modern electric car, their motors are usually about maybe the size of like a large watermelon. So
Mm,
it's not a massive difference, but that large watermelon can do an enormously wide power band without
mm.
having to use a transmission. If you went the other way around, if you used a little tiny cantaloupe and then you hook that up to a transmission, you could probably get that little tiny cantaloupe size motor to do most of what the watermelon size could do, going
Oh,
on the
interesting.
freeway and so on.
So very
However,
similar to how a transmission, works on a combustion engine.
yeah,
It gets more power, more uh, you know, uh, propulsion out of the engine, basically.
yeah, exactly. But in order to make that so the cost difference for the vehicle manufacturer is, do I get a little tiny motor, which would save you a little bit of money, save you some copper, but then you got to get, then you got to get the whole gear tunnel. You have to get the entire transmission. You have to add a ton of complexity and a ton of cost and a lot of changes to how you structure the vehicle and also like the cabin, the undercarriage, all of that has to change because you had to
So
stick with that
I
tiny
wonder
little motor.
with the car, like the new Charger, I wonder why, if they're making these pops and bangs and they want you to feel like you're driving a muscle car, I wonder why they didn't try to go a transmission route with it. Maybe they just think, this is the way electric cars are. It's just stop or go. There's no gears, and that's how they've been made. So we're just going to follow suit. Or maybe, like you said, cost cutting is always big in the automotive world. So maybe that was a reason why they didn't. But I feel like I would, I don't know. Like if it was me, I would rather have a 6 speed in an electric car than something that sounds like an engine but is just fake.
I Yeah, I think that the cost savings is going to be for the manufacturer, that is.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the big thing. The big thing that leads them towards never going with the transmission again. I've never had to spec any of these parts, so I don't know if the cost savings is huge and therefore they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It would be really interesting to see if anybody does this. I know it happens a lot in the conversion world because they start with a car that already has a transmission in the first place. And so
Hmm.
they may as well utilize it while it's
Hmm.
sitting there for, we'll say for free. But yeah.
Yeah.
So for it would actually kind of make sense uh if Dodge was going to be using the same platform, the same chassis, the same everything for the 6 cylinder as they would for the Electrek. I
Hmm.
don't know if they will. Every company is building their own skateboard platform, and Stellantis is the parent company for Dodge. Stellantis is doing exactly that. I forgot what they call it. I think it's the STLA. Most of them just kind of go along with a funny little acronym. I think Stellantis has the STLA platform, which will probably underpin the electric charger. And if that's the case, then there's no need for all the other undercarriage parts and cabin parts to accommodate all of those mechanical pieces that take up space. So I'm going to guess. I don't. Again, I'm not really entirely sure about the rest of this design, but if they make essentially two different vehicles with the same body, kind of,
Hmm.
that would be great in my eyes. The only other option is to make the 6 cylinder version that has like a transmission tunnel and has like a small cabin and a huge hood that's
Hmm.
underutilized, and then just force all of that electric stuff in there so that the occupants have very little space and the balance is kind of goofy. For Yeah, so I hopefully they make two different vehicles, but I don't know. I'm not sure if they're trying
Yeah.
to go for the kind of like the Mustang route, where they're selling this to people who are who want something to show off but don't really appreciate the finer aspects of racing and stuff, which personally I would fall in that category. If they're selling for that, then they can probably just do one vehicle. If
Yeah.
they're going for the people who really care, then they would make two different ones. So now I'm starting to like talk myself into the idea that they're going to make one, because
Yeah,
it is a
it's
Charger after all. It's not, you know, it's not a high end. So
yeah. Well, I mean, they do have the high end trims, but that's something I think is interesting too, is that they Dodge has kind of been king of the V8 recently. They're like, their V8 wasn't going anywhere. They had, their Demons and Hellcats and all their different types. But this one here is being a straight six with a twin turbo. I mean, it's not what do you say? It's not sacrilegious. I mean, Dodge and Plymouth Chrysler, they were known. They had a great slant six back in the day. A lot of people, if they a lot of car enthusiasts would prefer a straight six over a V6. And the fact that it's got turbos is nice, but so it's not like totally sacrilegious, but I do wonder why they didn't go with the V8, since they've been pioneering that for the last 10 years and getting amazing efficiency out of it and power, like just crazy horsepower numbers and things like that. So I think the fact that it'll be a six cylinder, I don't know, might rub people the wrong way, but I do think it looks great.
okay, I wonder if I could try to do a little sketch on the picture there, but I can't figure out how to do it in
Oh,
this video platform, but that's okay.
want me to put the
I could
picture
just
back up?
describe it. I could describe it. Yeah, just put the picture back up. So I'm going to guess, just a guess, that
Mhm.
they did the V6 route on account of hood space. This
Yeah,
hood very much contours down towards the front end to give it that aerodynamic edge.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that could be very useful space for a radiator in a
yeah.
V8.
I
Um,
I think I think and I could be wrong. I'm just totally speculating here. Maybe this is like their V6 and they keep the Challenger going, and the Challenger is going to be the V8 car or
hmm,
something.
yeah, it could be. One last note on the electric Dodge Charger. I don't know who's going to be in charge of their social media and marketing, but that's going to be a huge chore to try and differentiate the Dodge electric Charger from
The gas
any,
version.
yeah, from any kind of device that's supposed to replenish your battery pack that's called an electric charger. So they're
Oh,
going
I
to have
see
to
what you're saying.
differentiate.
Yeah, just the word charger is,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
so
like
if you're
I
looking
need a
for an
charger for
electric
the
charger,
charger.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's going to be it's going to
Oh,
be
I have
real
an
a
electric
big.
charger.
Yeah, I got one. It's laying in the front lawn. Yeah. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, the electric charger versus the electric charger is going to be a huge pain in the neck for all the people doing their marketing.
Yeah, maybe
So
they'll
good
just
luck.
call it like the e-charger or something like that. But even then, there's probably, a billion companies and things that have played around with that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Kind of like the you know, thing during
Yeah,
the iPod days and stuff like that. So
yeah, the iPod, and then
iHome, iRadio.
yeah, the third party stuff all the way down to like oh gosh, who knows? The iCanvas grocery bag and everything. So
Yeah. Okay, well, so I think it's cool that you started out with kind of in the muscle world with Monte Carlos and stuff like that. Going to electric for a lot of people, that's like a really big stretch. Like, how does a lover of like American cruisers and muscle and stuff like that, how does one get into electric? But you were actually saying that like you're really into the history of electric cars, because electric cars, most people don't know, have been around forever, including, the 50s and 60s and 70s. And they played around with a lot of different stuff, didn't they?
yeah, they did for the 100 years and a little bit over that. So a quick image search, and you can totally bring up examples to show. But yeah, electric cars have been around for a very, very, very long time. Around the turn of the century, meaning like 1899 to 1900,
Mhm.
electric cars and gas cars were made in similar quantities. They were, of course, at that time they were, handmade and
Mhm.
During the turn of the century, it was not decided which propulsion method would be king.
Hmm.
Um, the gas vehicles were noisy and horribly inefficient, a lot worse than they are today. They were horribly inefficient. They were noisy. They produced a lot of smoke and fumes and a lot of difficult mechanical parts. And the electric vehicles, their problems that we kind of discussed today were all magnified back then. Their range was very, very low. The vehicles weighed a lot. They were very heavy,
Hmm.
and the charging network didn't exist. It was a lot easier to
Oh yeah.
transport a can of yeah, a lot easier to transport a can of gasoline than it was to try and build a charger network when like U.S. Congress wasn't even lit up by electric light at that time.
Yeah, we didn't even have standards and
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. So at that time, it was not yet decided, even though the writing was kind of on the walls that gasoline propulsion was just a lot easier to like gasoline was much easier to transport, much easier to store, and yeah, that's really what made it win out. Some people will get into conspiracy theories that the gas companies or that the vehicle companies were trying to destroy the electric car or destroy the electric car companies. In the early days, I don't know if that was necessary or assuming they did it, which they very well could. All things are fair in love, war, and business. So um, even if they tried to do some of that stuff, I don't know how effective it was in the very early days. Um, Later on, there was like electric trolleys that would come, and General Motors kind of slapped that down almost single-handedly to maintain their monopoly on transportation. But anyways, long
But
story short,
you still had people trying throughout the years, right?
yes, precisely. So electric vehicles, yeah, there's a great example. The Nick L. Silver. Electric cars have been attempting to sprout up like weeds through the tarmac. They've been attempting to sprout up throughout the last 100 years. And a lot of big car companies have experimented at times, including General Motors, Ford, when they were Chrysler. Chrysler did so. And there was little pockets in which electric cars would kind of get some traction. In the oil crisis days, the 70s, there was a handful of electric cars that came out during that time, including the first mass-produced electric car in the United States, which was the Sebring Vanguard City car.
Yeah,
That's a
it's that little wedge looking car. You have one of those, don't you?
I do, yes, yeah.
That's
So
your collector vehicle.
that's my collector vehicle. Yeah,
I'll see if I
exactly.
can pull one up. You tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this one, the publication shows 1959 for this one that you have on screen here, and things were happening at various times. Probably not during the war, in all reality, but during the oil crisis, Sebring Vanguard, a small company out of Sebring, Florida, um, a fellow by the name of Bob Beaumont was at the helm, and he was trying to, make a way to get around the world with gas prices getting extraordinarily high, and also limitations on what gas or how much gas could be purchased. So he went out to make a street legal golf cart, essentially. Um, hey, that one's only has 122 miles on the clock, according to this listing you show, but I doubt that. I know these vehicles very well, inside and out, and there's a high likelihood that the odometer was disconnected from the motor. It does
Mhm.
look in really good condition, so it's possible, but I don't know. I'd have to look at the undercarriage, really. It does
These
look
have a
pretty.
very interesting shape to them.
They do, yes. So
So
the
looks
city,
like it seats two.
it does, yes. It seats two, side by side. There's no room for a soda in between.
So this looks
um,
like a storage in the back, I'm guessing.
yes, so that's a storage in the rear, a little shelf.
Okay.
Mhm. That one does look pretty clean. Oh,
Oh,
even manuals. Maybe it does have 122 miles. Huh. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting distracted from the.
No, you're fine. This article was 2019 though, so I don't know if it's for sale anymore.
It's okay. They haven't quite reached collector status quite yet. It
Yeah.
might be a while. But yeah, the city car was I think the third or fourth iteration of a street legal golf cart with some semblance of a cover, so that people could drive around in electric cars without paying crazy gas prices.
So
And
how
they
fast does one of these go?
about 35 miles an hour.
Oh, okay. So like if you were like around town or neighborhood, but it's definitely not taking you on any highways or freeways.
No, 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 no. And I wouldn't want to either. I'd definitely drive this thing, and I have driven this thing or one like it on essentially bike roads, roads that bicycles are more comfortable with lower top speeds and
Okay.
yeah,
Well, what
and
about
lots of
like with the older cars, they would have like they did a few conversions. Like this is the I want to say it correctly, Electrovair. Did I say it right?
the Electrovair, yes.
Yeah, so it's like
Uh,
a Corvair, a
mhm.
Chevy Corvair, and that looks like a bunch of batteries, I'm guessing, in the front.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly right.
was something like this intended to hit highway speeds?
The Electrovair, I'm not entirely sure. It's certainly got the chassis, the safety precautions of like a bumper and real seat belts. Well, at least
Well,
for
it's
the
funny you
time.
mentioned that because I think the Corvair is what set off Ralph Nader on
Oh
his
yeah,
safety crusade.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I was comparing it to the city car,
yeah, you're comparing it
which
to
is
a
a
golf
golf
cart,
cart. Yeah. So,
essentially. Yeah,
yeah,
so it's better than a
golf
golf
cart.
cart. Yeah,
Yeah, better
we
than a
can.
golf cart. Which yeah, that should have been the first thing they told Ralph Nader. Come on, man, it could be
Yeah,
worse.
yeah, it's not a golf cart. Yeah.
Yeah, at least we're not like them. Yeah. Um, but yeah, the Electrovair was one of several builds that General Motors had done to kind of explore the electric vehicle viability,
Mhm.
done during this similar incentives for gasoline prices, and really to see if people would like it, if it would sell. There at the time, I don't think that this vehicle could have gone much more than maybe 30 miles of range.
Mhm.
Similar, probably lower. I'm just kind of guessing. I don't
Yeah.
know the specs on this, and this vehicle was never sold on the market, so we don't have a lot of hard user data for this one. But I'm guessing this vehicle didn't go terribly far because it's so doggone heavy.
Mm.
The city car itself was essentially a golf cart,
Mhm.
so it was incredibly lightweight compared to thick American steel
Mhm.
underpinning these classic cars. Um, so yeah, that takes a lot of battery to move a small amount, and if they're just building a candidate um, for testing things out, there's no reason they need to put thousands and thousands of dollars under the hood for something that's only going to be driven around the block for people testing it out. So I can see why they have a small range for the Electrovair.
Mm.
But
So,
yeah,
how many of these city cars do you think sold roughly?
they made about 2,000, a little over 2,000 of those. And from what I can gather, there's somewhere around 200 of them that are known to the greater internet community.
Mhm.
So
So
yeah,
there's like I'm assuming these have VIN numbers.
they do. Yeah, they have a VIN.
So there's like a VIN registry online.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of fun to watch when you to watch the different models and how they were built, because on the VIN registry of all the enthusiasts online, they have different characteristics that are put on there. Oh, this one has that kind of mirror, this kind of mirror, this kind of door, that kind of door. I guess they ran out of that turn signal switch at this moment. In 1974, in October 3rd, they ran out because they started using the new turn signal switch from here on out, and before that, it was the old one. So, kind of fun to see all the little bits and pieces that go into the factory production of such a unique vehicle. And it is unique with only a couple hundred of these still around, most of them non-operable. It's definitely rare, not
I've
sought after, but it's rare.
I've had the opportunity to see four in person.
Mm.
more of them. And my question is it like part of the car? Is it mandatory that they have all this junk on the floor or on the
Yes.
seats? Because I feel like every time I see a Sebring Vanguard, there's like just like stuff like laying on the floor.
Yes, yes,
So that's part of that comes with the car.
it's in the sales contract. Yeah, it's like if you're going to buy this for $100, or if I'm going to pay you $100 to take it off my lawn, you have to keep stuff in the on the
Yeah.
floor.
Well, that's
Yeah.
cool. I mean, it definitely looks unique and different. I remember the first time I saw one of these, and you know, I someone said it looked like a doorstop. You know, and it's in the late '70s where you're kind of seeing things go from, you know, you had the space age of, you know, and the atomic age and space age, you know, 40s, 50s, the design language. And now in the 70s going to the 80s, you have this weird kind of thing where they're not quite sure where to take it yet. So it's like pre-80s future, you know.
Right.
But yeah,
Well,
it looks I think it looks kind of cool, but then again, you know, because I do this for a living, it's always cars like this that stand out because when you've seen, you know, 100, you know, Dodge Chargers, which are great and I love them, but then you see something like this, you really, you know, snap your neck and say, what was that just went down the road? Or, you
yeah,
know, my wife
it's
will ask me and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what that is, you know, and then I get home and have to do a deep dive or something.
yeah, it's definitely a head turner when I'm driving mine around. Regarding the design, I think it's kind of giving them a lot more credit than they deserve to say that they were really designing anything because the exterior was just like shameless practicality and cost cutting. Like
Wow.
the the design of the door, like they had a frame, and their basic frame had to fit the headlights, which are, I forgot the name of them, but those cheap circle headlights that are on everything. And it also
Mhm.
had to fit those windows. Those windows were, I believe that they were purchased um in overstock from speedboats.
Oh, okay.
So you had the windows and the headlights, and I think that there was something about the bow, how it kind of like bows out. If you're looking at it dead on, it kind of like bows out towards the side and comes down. But like, yeah, they were going around the parts that they had, and they were just making a straight line because that was they just they weren't going for it. They weren't even going for aerodynamics because at low
Uh-huh.
speeds where it operates, aerodynamics really aren't that big of a deal.
Uh-huh.
So they were yeah. I don't really think they designed the exterior. I think they just made it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I that makes sense, I guess, because I remember in the '70s they had you know, Triumph had drastically changed their TR lineup, which was kind of like their British Roadster lineup, and they had drastically changed from the TR6 to the TR7 when they came out with the TR7, and they called it. I think I got it here. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, they called it the shape of things to come. You know, and it was very angled and
Oh,
just stuck out. It kind of stuck out like a sore thumb in the '70s. I mean, like if you see this in the '70s in traffic next to, you know, like a Buick, you know, 88 or something like that, you know, it's this thing is gonna, you know, look a lot different. And
yeah,
it was ahead of its time, but it wasn't the home run Triumph. Well, they sold quite a few, but a lot of people that were into the, you know, the TR4 and the TR6 when the 7 came, they were really sad because they wanted something more traditional, you know, like a little two-seater convertible. And these did come in convertible, but they were looking for something more traditional. Like, you know, it's always weird when you take something, um, you know, that just is way, way out there from what people are used to. And
right.
actually, that kind of brings me to my next point, and that is speaking of things that are way, way out there that people aren't used to, you probably see and do work with this thing all the time. Tesla's Cybertruck.
Yeah, I've done a lot of podcasting talk about this vehicle. I've never seen one in person. My colleagues at the website, several of them have seen it in person.
Mhm.
I have yet to do so, but yeah, I'm very up to date on it. It's going to be
I hear it does stick out like a sore thumb on the
it
road.
does, yes. It very much looks like an unfinished polygon from a half-baked video game. You know, like if you were playing one of those kind of sandbox games
Mhm.
and suddenly you see some um unfinished piece of the
Asset
video
or
game
something.
coming out. Yeah, like but yeah, it's definitely striking to say the least. Um yeah. The design of this one is the design of this one does revolve around the exterior, which is made of steel.
Yeah.
So
So
Tesla
he's
isn't.
kind
Oh,
of
sorry.
trying to go the DeLorean route, right?
Yeah, so the exterior is made of steel, so it can't realistically be painted. They do have coat. Tesla says they have coating options, like a coating the outside, not code as in like computer code for
Yeah.
software, although they have that. Um, this vehicle is going to be first delivered in customer hands coming up on November 30th. And we know a lot about it, but some of the most important things like the battery configuration, the price, the towing capacity, a lot of that important stuff we don't know for sure yet. There are
Mm.
some things we
Even
can
with
try to
all the
assume.
media buzz around it, they don't have any like real numbers for a lot of that stuff.
Right. Somewhere around 2 million people have put in a low commitment to buy one of these.
Mhm.
Um, and nevertheless, nobody knows the price. And
That was like $100 commitment, wasn't it?
right, it wasn't terribly
So,
large.
so
So
so that's like a pretty yeah, that's a very very low commitment.
yeah,
So what has changed since the unveiling? I see it has like actual rear view mirrors. I'm guessing that's like maybe some government like the EU or something has mandated those, maybe our own government. I'm not sure.
you're almost there. So it's our government that mandates the use of a physical mirror. In Europe, they can have little cameras on a stick.
Okay. Was there anything
Um,
else that like noticeably changed about the exterior?
on the exterior, the from the unveiling, not too terribly much. The windshield wiper. I don't know if the windshield wiper existed at all on the unveiling. Um,
Yeah.
we can check real quick, but that thing just has a big, huge windshield wiper, and you can see it. It almost looks like it's ready to deploy as a gun of some kind. Um, but that big windshield wiper just swings. It doesn't move side to side like a large lateral squeegee. It just
Mhm.
has a big swinging arm from one
Okay.
central point towards the driver. And it
That's
covered from what we
that's
can
kind of
see.
how some of the earlier supercars were, like the Lotus Esprit, I think had one wiper. I've seen McLarens with one wiper. So maybe he's trying to go for that, but this would be the first time I've seen it in a truck in a very, very long time. I mean, you'll have those old trucks with the little tiny, wiper here, but
Oh
like, I
yeah,
mean, this is
mechanical
the
wipers.
yeah, this is the first time I've seen it in a truck. I don't even know if I can call it a truck if we don't know all the numbers and what it can do and stuff. I mean, Tesla certainly calls it a truck.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
That itself is a tricky discussion because a lot of people out there say it's not a truck because of ABC and XYZ, and other people are saying it's the best truck because of one, two, three, and four, five, six. So um, one thing's for sure, they're selling it as a truck, and people interested in trucks, or at least electric trucks, will definitely be giving it a look. It's hard not to. It's so striking. Um, to wrap up on the exterior, at one point it was discussed to make the vehicle smaller. Um, Elon Musk had said we're going to make the car a little bit smaller, or the Cybertruck a little bit smaller, but then that was scrapped, and so we believe that it's made towards its original size from the unveiling, which will be delivered. Um, the wheels have those aerodynamic covers over them, which at least on one release candidate fell off.
Oh.
But that's normal for prototyping and stuff, so it can't be too critical.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what this does to the market in general and how people respond to it. It's definitely going to make some waves for better or worse.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be divisive, but I think in a good way because sometimes it's fun in the automotive world for something crazy to come out once in a while and see if it sticks or if it fails. There's always a Tucker out there car that unfortunately got pushed to the side and failed. But for every Tucker, you have a PT Cruiser, which was a huge sales success. Like that was a huge success for Chrysler. They actually had a prototype and decided, yeah, why not? We'll make it. And so, yeah, it's pretty crazy. All right, so while I got you here, this last little part, I did want to ask you. I think we'll have like a little war here: gas versus electric.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Yes, and I will be playing the side of gas, obviously.
Okay.
Um, but I want you to tell me three things you dislike about electric systems, and I'll tell you three things I dislike about gas.
Okay. Given the first thing that we had spoken, where I don't see these as being in conflict with one another, it's I'll humor you and go along with this with the little game, but just to make my position crystal clear, I don't see these two as being
You're fine. You're fine.
opposed to each other. Um, yeah. So you asked me three things that I don't like about electric systems. So are we
Yeah,
talking about like
uh,
the propulsion or the whole user
the
experience
the
or
whole thing. The whole thing.
um one thing I don't like, or three things I don't like about electric cars. One thing that's I don't see going away anytime soon is they're quite heavy. And this not only leads to some of the ride characteristics of how it feels, but they are going to burn through tires faster than a lighter weight gas car. Um, so the weight is definitely something that I wish wasn't there, but I understand why it is. Another thing I don't like um, about gas cars, or sorry, about electric systems or electric cars. I don't like that they're expensive. Um, I believe that'll change, but yeah, they're pretty pricey just to get started. The cheapest electric car out there is 26,000 bucks right now, but that's going to go away. And very soon, the cheapest electric car is going to be somewhere around 3,000 or 30, sorry, $32,000. I wish there was cheaper options out there because I think electric cars really excel at just a cheap, dumpy little car. It'd be so great if everybody had one of those. So I wish they were cheaper. Um, a third thing I don't like about electric vehicles. Um, this one's pretty much done, but for a long time, electric vehicles had to be weird, like the city car that we showed, or even the Nissan Leaf or the BMW i3, some more modern ones. They purposefully made them look really bizarre and strange, like they have to go for that mushroom
Shock
foraging
value or
hippie
something.
or something like that. Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay. Yeah.
they had to make them really weird, and the early advertising for the Leaf was kind of going that way, and so it's largely done with. Tesla did a lot to change the perception of what an electric car had to be.
Mhm.
But for a while, it seemed like we were kind of going back to that. So that's one thing I don't like about electric cars is that they tried to make them go for the like kind of like the counterculture alternate lifestyle sort of market,
Instead
which
of just like making an everyman's vehicle.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's see if I can do this because I do love my gas cars. So let's see if I can find three things I don't like. Well,
Yeah.
I know there's at least one, and that is the ever-changing cost of fuel. I hate going to the gas station and finding out how much premium is, and then I'm so excited when it's down low or the seasons have changed. But then I get mad when it goes back up again, and
Yeah.
it's hard to it's been that way for forever, and so that's one thing that's always bugged me was the how gas prices are so fickle and how they can change in a moment's notice, and the political geoclimate can change exactly how much you end up paying at the pump. And so for a lot of times, I remember when I was younger, I had a muscle car and I loved that thing. It was a 383 stroker, but it got to the point we hit a spot where gas got super expensive, and as a young guy working at a pizza joint, it was hard I was like getting coins from the couch and stuff, just trying to fill up that car. And so uh, you felt the sting, especially if you weren't if you weren't making good money. But even if you are making good money, it can be annoying to have all the gas prices go everywhere. Um, let's see. Second thing about gas cars that I don't like would be um, I would say this is hard. It's like, do I want to say it? Maybe yeah, I'll say it. Like, this is just me personally. I don't, so I like working on cars, and that's a huge part of it and of the community and restoring cars and doing those things. Having something that you either built with your hands or you repaired with your hands, it gives you so much knowledge on the car and things like that. But oh my gosh, boy, do I hate losing a screw or a bolt or like a 10 millimeter socket or just anything. I've lost so many little bits and pieces. I have a little bit of a perfectionist brain. So if there's like, if you have something that's like, pinned up by like 8 screws. I want all 8 screws. I can't just do 7, with Loctite. I have to have all 8. And so like that's something that's always bugged me when I was working on cars, was that kind of thing. Um, hold on. Can you hear?
Mhm.
I think I'll probably have to cut this little part out. I think my audio is being different. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the second thing. And let's see, the third thing I don't like about gas cars, I would say leaking, on driveways and fluids and stuff. I mean, it's not a big deal. If you have a proper setup in your garage, you're totally fine. But it's so embarrassing. Like if you're trying to show off your car and you just got it or something, and maybe you take it to a friend's house and it's like leaking in their driveway, or you take it to a car show and it's leaking. So like those things always like bugged me. Like I wish I could avoid that. So I
Right.
guess that would be 3 for me. Okay, so uh now let's do um I guess we'll do 3 things you like about Electrek.
Oh, well, that's not terribly tough. I really, uh, so electric cars are cheaper to operate than a gas car. And I've seen a couple of news articles do incredible gymnastics trying to counter that point, but it's it's cheaper to operate an electric car. And at least where I live, in Salt Lake City, Utah, the between the gas prices and the electric prices, I wind up paying about 1/10 of fuel cost. In so I pay if I was going to drive $20 worth of gasoline, I'd pay $2 worth of electricity, and that is that's huge. That's a huge savings already, and that's when I plug into my house. If I plug into a free charger, which they're all over the place, if you didn't know, there's an app called Charge Point, and that is a specific charger network. There's a few larger competing ones. ChargePoint has a function where you can just see the free chargers in your area, and it won't show you anything that costs money. And I'm surprised because even in Salt Lake City, where there's not a lot of mass adoption of electric cars yet, there's free chargers all over the place. And if I was dedicated, I could just go charge my car at one of them and do some work on a laptop, and I could drive around for free for for the foreseeable future, which is ridiculous. I mean, you talk about gas prices being the first thing that you don't like about a gas car. Imagine that just being waved away, the whole thing, always. Like you could drive around anywhere for free, anywhere.
Well,
That's
free,
possible.
not free, but
Well,
for
you know what I mean. The fuel cost.
yeah,
The
for a lot
like,
less. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the
You would
gasoline
be free of
aspect.
the fickleness of gasoline.
Well, not just the fickleness, but like if you were to use free chargers in your area, you could charge up your car for free. Like I said, do some work in the driver's seat while you're waiting for the car to charge up, which is not long. Modern electric cars are doing like 18 minutes for most of the battery. Then yeah, like it is very possible to have no fuel cost whatsoever, which is like it's crazy to me that that's possible. With gasoline, it'll never be possible ever. So
That's your number one.
that's my number one, is that they're cheap to propel. Number two is very closely, I guess we could say it's 1.5, is that they're really cheap to operate. They don't have so many mechanical parts to them that wind up needing maintenance or failing. Electric cars don't have spark plugs, they don't have fuel filters, they don't have pistons, they don't have catalytic converters or mufflers or transmissions. Like so many of these things that would and can and do break down are all gone. They just don't exist in this vehicle. They still have wheels and tires and brakes and suspension, which I'm keeping an eye on suspensions because electric cars do way more, so they got to put heavier duty stuff. But anyways, yeah, so many of those maintenance parts, oil changes, spark plugs, they just disappear. They're never there anymore, and they're replaced with nothing. So if you really like working on cars, getting a new electric car would give you empty nester syndrome because you don't have a whole lot to do. You put in some windshield wiper fluid and rotate the tires, and you're set.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're incredibly cheap to fuel, and they're also incredibly cheap to operate. This is why electric cars are going into fleet sales like crazy. Hertz Rental ordered like I think 100,000, and then like 50,000 more. Police departments and municipal departments left and right are going electric because they just cost so little. And even with the upfront cost being really high for high mileage vehicles, especially like a police cruiser, they get their payout in like a year or two. Like it's ridiculous how little they cost. And the longer someone owns it, the more that they drive, the better that is. And that's something that really got me attracted to them in the first place. So I could use something like this on every day of the week, so I could enjoy my gas car otherwise. But anyways, yeah, number one and number two are very closely related. Number three would just be I really like the tech of electric cars. I like that they're really powerful. They have a ton of low end torque. They don't have that lurch switching gears on the transmission. They are really, really smooth. The drive quality is really high just because it's electric. Even if you have a dumpy car like the what was it? The Chevy Bolt. Chevy Bolt is not an amazing car, but it's electric, so it feels really good. And car companies left and right are hinging upon the benefits of an electric car and acting as if they invented it for their otherwise ho-hum vehicle. Things like the new Polestar brand or the Audi Q4 e-tron or the Porsche Taycan. They're all advertising saying, "Oh, our car has low end torque. Our car rides so smooth." Not saying that it's just a benefit of electric, and they haven't needed to do a whole lot else to make them seem compelling. So Yeah, that's my 1, 2, and 3. It would be the cost to fuel, the cost to operate, and then the ride characteristics are great. So
Okay, so I think for me, well, I'll do three things. Um, three things I like about gas. I'm gonna say it. The smells are up there. I think I was reading years ago that like, especially for men, I mean, it works with all humans, but a little more so with men, that our memories are tied to scents. So that scent of getting into a car with vinyl seats and exhaust fumes and things like that, like it can bring back a flood of memories, you know. Um, oh,
I've got something to share for you.
what's that?
So Ford Motor Company, I put it in the chat so you can pull up that link.
Okay.
Ford Motor Company came out with a fragrance that smells
No.
like gasoline.
No. Did they
Yes.
really?
Yeah.
Let's
Here it
see
is on
this.
media.ford.com.
Splash and Dash Ford fragrance shows petrol fans they won't miss out with Mustang Mach-E GT. So, so you just smell a dirty old car when you
Yeah.
like when you
So
get in your electric Mustang. It's like so. Well, okay, so that proves my point though, that there are others out there that think about this. I'm not the only one, right?
yeah, Ford went so far as to make a fragrance so you can like, I don't know what you do, rub that on your dashboard or put it inside the air vent or something.
Yeah.
So that your electric car can smell like a gas car.
So I'm
So
going to quote this here from Jay Ward, the director of Ford Europe, says, judging by our survey findings, the sensory appeal of petrol cars is still something drivers are reluctant to give up. The Mach-E the Mach-E fragrance is designed to give them a hint of that fuel fragrance they still crave. It should linger long enough for the GT's performance to make any other doubts vaporize too. Oh dear. They're really trying to they're trying to sell it. That's funny. All right. Well, I do miss the smell, and I don't think whatever that is, I don't think a perfume is gonna do it for me because
oh, come on.
so yeah, that would be number one. Number two on gas cars, I like rolling through the gears like when we were talking about the Charger, having a transmission, there's like, I was thinking about when you're in an electric car and someone steps on it and you just like move forward. It's almost this roller coaster type feeling. And you're like waiting for the shift. You're waiting for the shift, but it never comes. It never happens. Some people love that, but I actually love the shifting part because when you take a gas car and then it's time to shift, you get this brief like chance to catch your breath for a second, and then before you can catch your breath, it just slaps you in the face again and keeps going. And it's just this idea of what gear you're in and how tall or short the gear ratio is and how far it can take you, or if you're trying to save gas mileage, you put it in overdrive or whatever. And it doesn't even need to be a manual. I mean, even the automatics, they have those feelings and those noises, the hesitation, and then the buildup. So there's for me, especially with sports cars, performance cars, there's a huge link with that kind of uh sensory, you know what I mean? uh
Yeah. It definitely appeals to like the archetype of taming a dragon or
yes, yes,
like
yes.
conquering the wild or a beast of some kind
Yeah,
and
yeah,
taming.
that's
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Yeah. And so yeah, and then let's see, the third thing about um gas cars, I would say, is kind of what you said, but in a totally different direction. You said technology, and I like the technology, the fact that there are a lot of working pieces and a lot of little things. You learn so much about engineering, you learn so much about production, you learn so much, when you get your hands dirty on a car, like it's a learning experience, and that knowledge translates into other things, like if you're messing around and you need some plumbing done at your home, you start thinking, well, maybe I don't need to hire a guy for this job. I mean, this looks like something I might be able to tackle myself. And you try it out. I think it builds that confidence and that kind of thing. So whereas like electric cars, you'll take them to dealerships and half the guys don't even know how to work on them,
Dare I
And
say more than half? Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, we're running a bit out of time here. So we'll just we'll end the debate here. Let me see if I can uh so the gas versus electric. Okay. Now I will have to say one nice thing I like about electric and one thing I hate, and you'll have to do the same for gas. Um, so all right, electric, one thing I like. What do I like about electric? I just thought of another thing I don't like about electric. But
Oh.
okay. Yeah, no, that's just all the funny little gear switches and how no one can make their mind is like park reverse neutral drive.
Oh.
No, one thing I like about electric is really just the approachability. I honestly think, you have a lot of young people that aren't learning how to drive and they don't know cars and stuff. And I think kind of like, when I was growing up, there would be that kid that didn't know how to drive stick, and he could only drive automatic, and we kind of tease and laugh at him. Um, but I think it's kind of like a new thing. Like you're going to have these young kids that are, connected to their phones and technology so much. It's going to be more approachable for them to get in a car like that than a car where they have to put it in neutral, feather the gas for the carburetor and turn it on and let it warm up for a minute. And, like that, to me and you, that sounds normal, but to someone who knows nothing about cars and is approaching it for the very first time, that can be an obstacle. And so I like that it's going to be something easy for people to get in, get out, go run their errands, get back home. It's like a wham bam, thank you, ma'am kind of thing. Just everything works real good. Um, something I hate, I'll use the word hate, about electric cars is the charging network. Because yes, it exists, and yes, like you said, there's free things here and there, but man, that convenience of a gas station is just, we're nowhere near there. And I've been to, I've been on my last battery percent. So I don't own an electric car, for those that are wondering, but I've had them as rental cars when I was traveling and things like that. And I've taken them, it's about to die. I really need this juice, I really need to charge it, and I'll get there and the charger's broken, or like there's a software error, or it's only doing the really, really slow charge. So I have to wait hours for it to charge this vehicle. And then I have to sign up with an app, and then I have to put money into the app, and then I have to, so that for me is like my big hurdle with electric cars. I guess it's your turn now. One thing you love and one thing you hate about gas cars.
Well, um, one thing I love about gas cars would be that it's similar to what you had said, that there is this this pride that comes from learning how to fix it and work on it and maintain it. And it's this appreciation for the learning experiences that you have in taking care of your stuff and taking care of your own mental health along with it. I think there's a lot to be said for it's like gardening, in a way. It's not uncommon for people to be recommended to take up a hobby such as gardening, not because it does anything for their for their home or anything other than make it look pretty, but just for the sake of working with your hands, just for the sake of learning a new skill and doing something that kind of gets you away from the modern stresses of the world. And I think that there's a lot to be said about the simplicity, what we now consider the simplicity of working on a vehicle that way. So I definitely would appreciate that in my time with gas cars. That's not to say that it has to continue into the future. I've never done any. I've never had that same feeling if I've had to, shovel poop in a horse stable, but for the old method of getting around. But yeah, I think that with that, gas cars are pretty much dialed in terms of parts availability and accessing in tutorials. All of that stuff has had a huge lead, like head start in it. So it's crazy to think that if you need a car part for a mildly common car, that you can call up 5 or 6 places in a city and get it delivered to your house if you need to. Like that's the infrastructure that exists for these is for repairing and maintaining these is huge. And there is some community to be found in there as well. So I definitely like that stuff about gas cars. I think it'll change. I don't think it'll go away, but I think it'll change with electric, and we'll see what it comes to. Something that I absolutely hate about gas cars.
Yeah, let's see how much you can piss off my audience, because we're not going to be happy with whatever comes out of your mouth. So let's hear it. Just get it over with.
Well, something that a lot of people are not really discussing that is just a fact of life is that gas cars aren't getting any better. The efficiency and the power output of gas cars has taken leaps, with particular inventions, but those have stalled out, and they're not really getting any better. And company after company have announced that they are not investing anymore into the development of their gas systems. General Motors is one. I think Hyundai, maybe Porsche, like tons of companies have announced they're not improving their gas engines, period, anymore at all. Like they're done. And so when people are talking about gas versus electric, like especially from the big players in car manufacturing, there's not a lot that's going to be coming out. It's not to say that things won't happen and that community and enthusiasts and even the smaller like racing scenes won't make their own innovations and stuff. But as far as the mass market goes, like there's not a lot to look forward to in terms of gasoline vehicles. So
but you're talking about the future development mostly, right?
Yes, I am. So
even then though, I would push back, because in my world I do see news stories coming out, whether it's like the V8s from Dodge, from Stellantis, the V8s they were coming out with were getting amazing gas mileage, and they were trying, different positions of different things. Mazda's been trying a bunch of new stuff. I know their Sky, when everyone was switching to the CVT transmissions that had, like 14 speeds, to try and get good gas mileage, Mazda was like, no, we can still get good gas mileage out of a regular transmission. We don't need, a funky transmission that has a high failure rate, and they just redesigned their engine, but it still had power and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying with people saying, these companies are bowing out, so to speak. But I don't know. I don't know if the innovation will totally die. I could see people. I mean, look at the sports car world. How many hybrids there are now between gas and electric, and some people are using them in the weirdest ways. Like we use electric only for, our combustion or our cooling system, and we use gas for our window regulators. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but like they're trying all these different combinations and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's still a few more, new things on the horizon for the gas engine. But I get your point.
Yeah, so I guess that's Yeah, that would summarize what I'm not. It's not something I particularly hate about gas cars, but it's something that is, I don't know. And I'm not really excited. I haven't been excited about gas cars in a long time, for very understandable reasons. But nevertheless, I just don't see a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, especially for mass market stuff. I guess that's what I'm really getting at.
Yeah.
The one-offs and the racing builds and stuff that will go on forever as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for sitting down and chatting and telling us about what's going on in the electric world. How can people find your podcast or some of your writings?
oh yeah. So I have a daily electric vehicle news recap show. The easiest way is probably on YouTube. The channel is called Electrek Daily, and the show is called Quick Charge. So if you like audio podcasts such as Spotify or iTunes, is it called iTunes Music or Apple Music?
Apple Music, but yeah.
Apple Music, yeah. You could. It's also on there in audio form. It's called Quick Charge by Electrek, and 5 days a week you'll hear me covering the latest electric vehicle news.
Cool. That sounds good. Well, yeah, thanks for sitting down talking, and we'll probably have you back at some point to talk about some more things and get your insight on some of this stuff. Maybe we'll get you on a panel or something.
Okay, sounds like fun. Thank you very much for having me.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. Go to www.americancollectors.com to get your free quote today and see how much you can save. Thanks for watching.